Okay, so I've created a little project here, and I've imported the holographic toolkit, as you can see down here, and I've got a little HoloLens camera, and got some geometry nodes underneath the hologram collection. So you can see that I've got a sphere grid. When I select it, you can see down here there's a whole grid of spheres, and then I've got another one there. So if I just rotate the view, I can see my camera somewhere in the middle, and there's also a cube here sitting in front of that grid of spheres. Now the idea of this project is that I'm going to use it to show you a visualization of frustum culling in Unity, and also we're going to turn on occlusion culling and see what effect that has on the rendering of those spheres. Okay, so the first thing to do actually is to open the window menu and click on occlusion culling, and this will open a window over here on my right hand side which has three tabs: object, bake and visualization. So for all the static objects that are in my scene, when I bake the data, Unity will create a space partition which it can use to calculate which objects are inside the view and are being visible and rendered, and those that are outside the view or occluded by other objects. Now we have some settings here, and if you hover over the description, you get a good description of what they are, but it seems to be appearing right now. There we go. Just hover over that object there and it gives you a description of what it does. And effectively you could use these to make that space partition smaller or larger. If you create the cells in the space partition are smaller, then the data that you generate will be bigger, but the data used will be more accurate. So it's a bit of a trade-off between space and runtime performance. So the first thing we need to do is we need to bake the data. So I'll tap on bake, and notice that there is a progress bar down at the bottom which says computing occlusion. If we click on this setting here called view volumes, we can watch the data being generated. So you can see the way that Unity is drawing this blue wireframe of how it's partitioning up the space. Now that data is baked, and let's move into a visualization. So let's just rotate the view for a second and notice straight away that we have some of the spheres not being rendered in the scene. Now that's due to the frustum culling. So if I select the camera and I move it back, as more spheres become visible inside the frustum, notice they're being rendered. Unity gives us quite a nice visualization of this effect. Now also notice as I move towards this cube, let's move the camera down a bit. As I move the camera up and down, you see some of the spheres centrally located at the back in this grid are not being rendered as I move that up and down, and that's being calculated by the occlusion culling. So you can imagine that if you're inside a maze, or you have some rendering of a street where you're inside a house, then this can be very valuable to reduce the levels of overdraw in your scene.